Two correct answers, one each. And then we move on to the next match, which I wasn't looking forward to until we got there, which was Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental title. So if you'd have told me 6 weeks ago this was going to headline, be one of the featured matches on Backlash, I would have rolled my eyes. Only because we've done very little with Lyra Valkyria since she won the title.
Yeah.
Although I was surprised at the stat of how many times she's defended it or how many matches she's won this year.
Yeah.
But she's had, I've talked about this previously, and I don't want to repeat myself for the sake of it, but I do think it's important to say she's had no personal issues.
Yeah.
So she's had no story time. There's been nothing to give her any fire. There's been nothing to give her any disappointment. There's been no character arc. So she's just been a bit bleh.
Just there. No, I agree with you on this one. But the fact that we had Becky Lynch, I feel as though like when the initial pull of the trigger with Becky Lynch was a bit too soon. But okay, you might have pulled the trigger a bit too soon. But for Lyra, I think the reason why they pulled the trigger is because it was very much needed.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think this whole feud has done wonders for Lyra Valkyria. Might not have done, might not seem that way to begin with when we first started the feud and she got beat for the tag titles the second night of Becky being back. But actually, I think that giving her a personal issue and something to fight for, we've seen some personality over the last few weeks. And then, you know, the match itself last night, which was technical, physical, full of counter wrestling, it was brilliant, to be fair. And I think Becky Lynch leaning deep into, well, let's call it heel mode. I'm not a massive fan of Becky Lynch as a heel, but let's call it heel mode. Even trying to expose the turnbuckle. Lyra then got to show some fire, some resilience, and after like what I would call a flurry of reversals, Lyra eventually caught Becky in that roll up for the 3. And I've previously talked about how I dislike the roll up finish. But I liked it in this instance, and I'll tell you for why. Because they teased it all the way through.
Yeah.
And it was about 4 teases for the roll-up finish, which I really enjoyed.
I think what was interesting about it is I actually thought from the actual match itself, as I'm watching, I'm like, you know, that move, this is looking like a Becky win. This is looking like...
I agree. I think it did look like one for a while.
It looked like it. But then inadvertently, her way of cheating ultimately ended up costing her the match.
Yeah,
which
absolutely,
like you just said, you don't like a roll-up to end a feud. I don't think we're done.
No, I don't like a roll-up to end a match, let alone a feud, but it worked in this instance. And I think I wouldn't say it was a career-defining win, but it was a really big win for Lyra Valkyria.